Almost there. Almost there. There we are. There we are. All right. Well, we're going to get the party started. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you, Scott. I'd scheduled it for 1 o'clock. I'm a little early. I don't know. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday afternoon. We'll see. I wanted to read some comments. I wanted to go over, as per usual, pick up some of the pieces from Monday's podcast and maybe sort of double click, expand on some of the things that I didn't feel like I had time to talk about, or it just didn't. When I create a podcast, I don't script it, so I kind of let it flow the way it maybe would naturally flow in a conversation, even though I realize I am still sort of talking to myself. But and it was really interesting throughout this video. I realized my approach, the thing that I thought I would say, I didn't say. And I thought that my approach initially was going to be a little bit more critical on the shroud itself. And I just wasn't. And I found myself kind of thinking along with John, with Mel Gibson, with Joe Rogan, with Eddie Bravo, just the number of clips that I played, and just kind of going, yeah, I wonder about this. One of the things that I never really did talk about, maybe I've got an image of it here somewhere, a bigger one, a better one. One of the things I didn't ever really talk about was the appearance of the crown on the shroud, which, again, there's going to be people who say, well, yeah, of course, it's a forgery. And so people were trying to make it look like there was a crown. But, even if it was just a burial cloth from a man who had been crucified, you wouldn't put a crown of thorns on just any crucified man. And it really does. I mean, that part of the image does appear to be there, which is, again, make of it what you will. But that, of course, that's the digital rendering of it. But that was just interesting. There was a few things that, I thought initially I would speak on that just didn't come out in the podcast. And so I want to pick up the pieces and play some clips for y'all. And if you are joining me here live, I do appreciate you. You can hit the like button, share this, I'll do all those things. And again, my live streams are a little bit haphazard. I tend to try to go Tuesday nights. Sometimes that spills over into Wednesdays. And so if you are subscribed, but you don't have the bell notification, then this is one of the ways I try to talk you into getting that bell notification. But let's just get into it and see where we go from here.
The evidence for this being the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ himself is quite convincing. But, of course, I don't tell you what to think. You'll have to look at it for yourself.
This is my first real foray into Dr. John Campbell's content. I had seen some of his medical stuff, particularly a few years ago, if you know what I mean. And I just really appreciate his take right there. It's like, hey, I'm kind of convinced here, but of course I don't tell you what to think. Again, he's not saying this, but the way I would think of it is I'm engaging in a dialogue. I'm engaging in an ongoing conversation. And I think that people are utilizing YouTube and podcasting more and more in that way. They're not trying, and of course, this is what I'm doing here. I'm not trying to present myself as some sort of expert in theology. This is one of the reasons I like to talk about theology, is there aren't really any experts. We're all kind of trying to figure this one out. And anyway, I felt a very sort of a kindred approach there from Dr. John Campbell, who is in fact a expert in his medical field. But here he is taking a risk. He's talking about the Shroud of Turin, which is not something that he would normally feature on his channel. He does look at it sort of forensically as a medical doctor throughout his episode. And so I did get a few comments of people saying, Dr. John Campbell sort of needs to stay in his lane. But of course, I'm picking the clips out of his full video where he does kind of stay in his lane. His initial approach is to look at the wounds, as look at it from a medical doctor. So anyway, again, just sort of right there, you get a sense of his approach to this, even though he is kind of going out on a little bit of a limb with regards to his channel and his normal content.
Why don't more people know about this? Well, John Calvin, he was a Protestant theologian of the past, and he wrote this book saying that the relics the shroud particularly was a forgery, and he was quite influential in the Protestant world, and the secular world isn't particularly interested in it. So while this has got some traction in the Catholic world, very little traction in the Protestant world, which is a great pity. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes.
Okay. So that was one thing I didn't double click on during the podcast. I don't know if John Campbell is a Christian, a Protestant. I don't know what his faith background is, but it was interesting that he said we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I've taken the same approach as a Protestant, as a someone who, my approach is sort of from the Reformed perspective. And I do feel like there are parts of the Reformation that, we didn't need to go. I always say, like, we didn't need to go burning down, like, the stained glass windows. When I mean burning down, breaking the stained glass windows and doing that. I think that, it's like, hey, reel it back. As much as I can apologize for what the Protestants during the Reformation did, sorry about that one. Like, that was a little too much. And it's like, yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe there's something here. And I actually thought that where he goes with this, was just kind of fascinating. So right there, I was like, curious. What is his perspective here? Is he a Christian, Protestant? Doesn't seem like he's Catholic, but he may not be Christian at all, and I don't know. Now, I did email him after I was done making this, and so we'll see. I'm sure he gets lots of emails. But it'd be interesting to have more conversation along those lines.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, a lot of these relics, so-called, were just a part of a medieval racket. Of course, it was a making money thing, like selling indulgences. But there does seem to be some genuine relics as well, and the shroud seems to be one of those. The evidence for this being...
Now, help me out here in the chat. What is a relic exactly? And I don't think the Catholic Church actually claims the Shroud of Turin as a relic. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think it's officially been claimed as a relic. Syndenology? That's wild. Oh, interesting. That's the study of the shroud. Interesting. Joseph, thanks for that one. But yeah, is it, I think of a relic as something that it's not quite an icon, right? An icon is something that it's a visual display of something that the true picture of it is something you're trying to grasp beyond the icon, right? The icon is sort of a tool, and you're supposed to move past the icon. You're supposed to move through the icon to really grasp what the icon is communicating to you. A relic is different, right? Obviously, it's an artifact. And yet it's sort of used in the same way to sort of help maybe increase people's faith or move people's faith from doubt or disbelief to belief, something like that. So if you've got an approach there, if somebody's got like a working definition of what a relic actually is, maybe that would have been a great thing to put into the podcast. Matt C., what is up? The official stance of the RCC is that the shroud can be venerated, but they won't say it's a relic, which is wild. So you can venerate it. Interesting. Well, we'll get to that because again, my approach was I was going to lean into more of the dangers of idolatry and that conversation with regards to the shroud. Excuse me for a second. It's easier to drink this without the cap on. If I drink it with the cap on, it hits me in the face. And he's pointing here to John Calvin. And that was kind of the stance. We did talk about this in the podcast. It's like it rather than serving to move someone's faith, to move someone from disbelief and doubt to maybe genuine faith, there's an obstacle. There's a potential here that it's actually an obstacle. And I'll show a clip. I'll show more clips from this. I used clips from this sort of mini documentary, but we didn't go into the fact that they created a 3D model of it. I mean, I'll just play this. We won't necessarily. Oops, did I pause it? What did I do? We won't necessarily listen to it. I don't know that I need to hear the commentary, but essentially what they did is they took the shroud, they took the information that's on the shroud, which is wild because it does have a lot of information. There's enough information on the shroud to create a 3D image, and then they took that 3D image and created this figure. Now, thankfully, they don't name the figure Jesus, or they keep the man here anonymous and mysterious, and so at least you have that, right? That it's not a full-fledged sort of idol would be the word, and that's good. We don't want to move into the realm of idolatry, but of course that's the danger that someone like John Calvin is pointing to, that we are our hearts are idol factories. We look for something that's tangible to us, that we can move and manipulate to our own will, rather than living in submission and harmony to God's will. And of course that's why, the Protestants would say, man, we don't need these things. And that's probably why the shroud goes overlooked in many circles. There's just a large enough group of Protestant Christians who just say, I just don't need it, And it's not to say, hey, if it moves someone, if something like the shroud moves someone from doubt and disbelief to curiosity, to the potential of real faith in the actual person of Jesus, then have at it. I mean, I think that is fine. It's part of the reason why I felt like it was okay to make the podcast. It's just like, there is not, I think Calvin would say they're totally useless, but I think in the hands of God, I mean, God's using podcasting right now to bring people to Jesus. And so, he could use something like the shroud. They backed off saying it was a relic because of the competing scientific evidence, but they also won't say we can't venerate it because it means so much to people. The RCC affirms the bath water, but not the baby. Well said. Yeah, and of course there is a lot to the conversation, right? There are competing ideas out there, and I didn't go too much into the studies that were done in the late 70s and 80s, and essentially people coming out and saying, well, we've disproven it. It's from the 15th century. But I thought that was a good starting point there from Dr. John Campbell. Again, I'll probably say this more than once, but I've probably already said it more than once. I just appreciated his approach. And so, okay, he does say, okay, Racket. Yeah, it's a racket. We need to play that part again, because I need to be faithful to the title and thumbnail.
Shroud particularly was a forgery, and he was quite influential in the Protestant world, and the secular world isn't particularly interested in it. So while this has got some traction in the Catholic world, very little traction in the Protestant world, which is a great pity. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, a lot of these relics, so-called, were just a part of a medieval racket. Of course, it was a making money thing, like selling indulgences.
A making money thing like selling indulgences. Now, I wanted to play that. If that's too loud, let me know in the chat. If the clips are too loud, I'll turn it down just slightly. Because we'll get to that. It's a making money thing, right? So we're selling tickets to this event, right? We're selling tickets to this shroud, sort of brought to life museum, whatever this is, event. And that actually ties into our conversation that we'll maybe get into. We will get into a little bit, is the whole thing with the pyramids. So what's going on with that? So that's kind of in the back of my mind. That's one of the reasons why people will be skeptical. It's like, well, who's making money? Follow the money. Follow the money. Is it a racket? And if it is, then we need to. It's interesting too. One of the things I pointed out in the podcast is not only is their technology now to view the shroud in a new way, but there's technology to have conversation about the shroud and about these things like the pyramids in a new way. So people that are trying to pull off the racket are going to be exposed, and I think that's a good thing. If it's a racket, it should be exposed.
The way the world is going at the moment, there's a lot of things aren't looking very hopeful at the moment, and it's almost like that this is a message for later times, that while the shroud could be appreciated in earlier centuries, no one knew it was a photographic negative until photography was invented. No one knew it had three-dimensional information until the people started wanting to interpret the topography of distant planets, and so many other things that science is revealing about this quite extraordinary artifact.
Yeah. And what do you all make of that? Is it possible that the shroud is a sort of a message for later times in a modern world that is floundering because of a lack of meaning, a lack of purpose? Modernism is sort of failing us, or a post-enlightenment sort of modernism is failing us, and yet here's this mysterious, seemingly, clearly it's old. How old is it is of course up for debate, but is it possible that it's a message for later times? I just found that intriguing. I just found that idea intriguing, and I don't know. I mean, I think that, again, I sort of hear something in Dr. John Campbell's voice that is of great concern. Now, he's spent the last couple of years of his life following very closely the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. He's just following it. So he feels that. Like, there are people who have just clearly lost hope. There are people who have lost their lives. There is chaos and madness in the street. And if, again, something like the shroud could come and cause people to wonder, because it clearly is causing Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson to wonder. And then when Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson start to wonder, and millions of people start to wonder with them, I think it's likely the conversation goes to actual faith in Jesus. Some people are going to go, yeah, of course, it's, whatever. They're going to dismiss it. But then there's going to be people who, it's funny. People who think they don't need Jesus never go looking for him, right? People who think, think they don't need Jesus. They've somehow convinced themselves that they don't need, but it's desperate people. You see this all throughout the Gospels. It's the desperate people who reach out and cling to Jesus. They're at the end of their rope. And so when I hear Dr. John Campbell saying that, I think, okay, he's on to something. He's on to something, because there's a lot of people at the end of their rope and might be looking for something like the shroud. And going, gosh, maybe there's more out there. At the very least, history is more than what maybe it was taught in high school. There's more to the story. There's more to my story, and that's even just moving the needle that much it can be encouraging. We can give the RCC credit that they put the shroud out of public view. They aren't making money off of it. Okay. Well, yeah. So, give the RCC credit. They're not making money out of it. People that then take the image, I mean, who knows? Maybe, I won't judge, but maybe they're donating all their money to charity or something like that. But certainly, well, and of course, what am I saying? I mean, I'm doing a podcast right now, and I make AdSense off my YouTube channel. And so, yeah, I guess we should all be sort of careful about that. So that's good. That's encouraging. Putting it out of public view, not using it as a money-making tool right now. So on that, so the Shroud was sort of in my mind. I did this podcast on the Shroud, listening to Joe Rogan, Mel Gibson, Eddie Bravo, various, whatever. And at the same time, following a little bit this whole Giza pyramid thing. And right away, feeling sort of skeptical about the whole Giza pyramid. And I was encouraged that Jimmy Corsetti of Bright Insight kind of echoed that, because at the time it was like, yeah, of course, lots of people want to believe in these sort of ancient civilizations, and it's cool and it's fascinating. But, one of the first things that he pointed out, and I think I retweeted most of his stuff as the conversation evolved. And, one of the first things he pointed out was like, isn't there a bunch of water? Isn't there like a whole water table under there? And these images aren't showing the water table. And then pointing out that, well, if these images were taken by a satellite from top down, how did they generate the side view of the columns? And then you dig a little deeper and it's like, oh, well, we used AI to generate the images, the side view. And okay, so what you're showing the public is not the actual data, which is what I had said to begin with. Is like a lot of people are linking the pictures and the AI generated images, but where's the article? Where's the science? Where's the scientific sort of article that was released? And, over time, what comes out is there's they're kind of fudging things. But what they are doing is selling books and selling tickets to conferences. And that is what, let me see if I can remember here.
Just a couple of
Metatron. And that is what Metatron points out in this video, which I thought was very good. A pyramid aptly named by that guy from Strange Theology. A pyramid scheme emerges. There's a little dad joke for you, okay? Just bear with me. Metatron, I think I've watched one of his videos before, but this I thought was good.
A couple of days ago, I made a video called "We Need to Talk About the Megastructures Under the Pyramid," where I was examining and trying to figure out whether these new claims that now have gone viral about these megalithic structures and tubes going underneath the pyramids was real. Or just a couple of days ago, I made a
bad clip, real or just like the Shroud. Okay, what are we doing? Is it real? Is it fake? Is it a relic? Is it a artifact? Is it just a money making racket? Is it a scheme? And so Metatron, almost 1 million subscribers. This video has 381,000 views. Jimmy Corsetti retweeted it. And so there you go. Not only is technology allowing us to see something like the pyramids in a new light, see something like the Shroud of Turin in a new light, but technology is allowing us to talk about it and sift through it in a new way. So he just goes on, YouTube and says, hey guys, I'm not 100% sure what exactly is going on. And so what he did, so he is a native Italian speaker and the conference was in Italian. And so he just watched 3 hours of this conference that they posted online and then did a recap of it. I guess it's like 30 minutes long. Oh, let me see. Is that going to share the video? That's going to share the video, even though I've got my clip there. So I will share that with you all in the chat. And it's always at this point that I hope that I put chat reply or in the video on demand afterwards. So if you're watching this after the fact, I will also try to put it in the description of the video, link to Metatron's video here. Let's get on to the next clip, because this is where, again, and is the Shroud connected to pyramid? It loosely connected in my mind around the same type of conversation of like, we as a sort of digital online community are looking at some of these artifacts and trying to determine what's true, what's fake, and then what we can do about it. Because I think the Giza thing going viral, if nothing else, shows me that there are millions of people who want to believe that there's ancient civilizations. They want to believe that there are these this technologically advanced artifact that we can find underneath the pyramid. There's a lot of people that want to believe that. Whether or not that's actually true, it did expose that that's what's going on sort of in the city. If we're looking at it, again, from like Socrates and the Republic type of thing, where we're observing what's going on in the soul of the city more globally, and you can tell that people really want to believe. Now, they really want to believe in this sort of like ancient civilization. As a biblical Christian, I think that's great, because that it's like we came from Eden, and I think we have that longing still. And so it shows me that there's a lot of people who still have that longing and that desire as we look back into the ancient past to realize humanity didn't just evolve from some sort of quote unquote lower life form, but we were created for a purpose. We were given a place. And yet that same desire that seems to be emerging as clips about the Giza pyramids go viral can also be manipulated for deception, right? And that would be the caution.
Complete nonsense, but maybe there is something there. Maybe the scan did find some structures, and if that's the case, then go and dig. Go and dig. And of course, if the Egyptian government doesn't allow it, well, then I would be against the Egyptian government at that point. Because if this is true, and we can dig, and we find these pipes, whatever they are, well, already, even if they're made of stone, with glass, like they're saying around it, they would already show an incredible feat of architecture. Complete nonsense, but maybe there is something there.
Maybe there is something there. Maybe there is something there. And unfortunately, if they try to grab money, right? If they try to use this as a money-making scheme, a racket, then they're actually undermining the future generations of people to do actual, real science. Yeah, maybe the Giza pyramid columns were a mystery revealed for our skeptical times. It's interesting too. You think about all the LiDAR scans that they're doing in the jungles and stuff like that. You think about Graham Hancock's work, and it just is. It's interesting. I find that stuff very fascinating. Lots of Mulders, few Scullys. We need both. Almighty Om, good to see you. The technology is still essentially theoretical, so we need to remain open-minded. Yes, and that's what Metatron did say. He does say that, and I think I do have a clip. I do have a clip of it here somewhere. Yeah, so the Giza pyramid has some interesting similarities to the conversation about the shroud. Maybe there's something under the pyramid, but the team is undermining the truth with bad science, maybe because they're motivated by mammon, right? The spirit of greed. Is that what's motivating people? All right, you know what? They did talk about.
But until you show me and you dig, I don't believe it. The only thing I'm willing to accept at this point is that maybe there is underneath. But this is a very newly used technology, and we don't know how reliable it is. They say it works, but they have a conflict of interest. They're selling books. But until you show me.
So there you go, right? It's like he watched the whole thing, and what is it? There's pitches, oh, my book, but you can buy, and it's fine. Like, people need to, it's fine. Make your money, sell your books. That's fine. But when you again, it's the deception thing. This is a genuine relic. Is it? Do you want it to be a genuine relic so you can sell books? There was a spot too. Shoot, I don't think I didn't clip that part, which is weird because I wanted to. Okay, so there you have the spot where he points out that they're selling books, which is fascinating. There's another part, and I think I can find it pretty quick, where he points out that someone referenced the emerald tablets, and I don't know if he's talking about the Thoth emerald tablets. Let me see if I can find this. But that would be a clue that there is some cult activity going on. And I think I can just play this without it. You know, he's not gonna, I don't think he's gonna. Let's see, I'll speed it up just to make sure. I don't know how long of a clip I'll show you guys, but he does point that out, which I thought was interesting. I did a podcast on the Emerald tablets. Maybe I did more than one. I don't remember. I was kind of playing around at one point with that. So I think this is the spot.
And by interpreting these numbers, they are telling him that there is something underneath. This is insane. Minute 51:12 is when he finally introduces the Emerald tables. He does mention that academia doesn't consider these to be a real finding or something that can be dated, considering the fact that we don't have the originals. But once again, he thinks that's a cover-up. But that's where we have a lot of description of the city of Amenti, which is why he will still proceed to use them as evidence. He then...
Right. So there you go. So you have this starting point, right? He has a presupposition that's based off of pretty loose stuff. Again, people wanting to believe certain whatever cult-like myths and then looking at the data and then selling books, which, I mean, like, not to bring it up because I feel like the Billy Carson thing is dead and gone, but I mean, that was essentially Billy Carson's shtick. He was selling a book. What was his book on? The Emerald Tablets. He says Emerald Table, but so I don't know if that's something different or if that's coming from the Italian, I don't know. So there you go. Just another pseudo-religious racket with modern AI images. They're selling books. Is that any different than selling something like indulgences back when John Calvin was critical of something like the Shroud? And I didn't put in Galatians. There's a really interesting passage. What do you guys do with this? Was it Galatians 3? I put this in the podcast, but I didn't click on it very much. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around between Giza and the Shroud. But before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. That was, and somebody said, let me get to the comments here. Somebody commented on that, which was great. I've got some Bible passages here to look into, but I did want to get into some comments here. And I know that I really wish there was a better way to do this. Maybe that's, but shout at me if my little camera view is in the way. How many people in history were scourged, crucified, pierced with a lance, and crowned with thorns? Yeah, we did talk about that. Yeah, DJ, thank you for that. There shouldn't be any doubt, and that's okay. I mean, some people are going to jump on the Shroud and say, that does it for me. Other people are going to remain skeptical. Other people are going to say, it's clearly not, and Christians will just believe, whatever they want. Which I say, yeah, skeptics do the same thing, right? Didn't Paul say that if the resurrection never happened, our faith message was in vain? Yep, that's true. Let me, can I sort these by oldest, newest first? Okay, let's go newest first, and then we'll go all the way to the bottom. Because I think there was a few at the very beginning that I got that I wanted to cover. Yeah, I did a touch on this. Dr. John Campbell's a teaching nurse. He's great in his field, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson, they need to stay in their lane. And I get that. Okay. Yeah, for those who believe, no explanation is necessary. For those who doubt, no explanation will suffice. Exactly, like we were just talking about. And I really appreciated the comments in this video. And I don't want to go, I don't want to, it's a live stream. And so I can, it's my live stream and I can gripe if I want to, right? Can I do that? I don't really want to gripe, but it is interesting that no matter what I do, videos seem to just hit a marker and then YouTube decides you're done. And it's usually about 2,000, around 2,000. And this video got a ton of comments and a ton of good comments. And so there's a ton of good conversation going on around my video on the Shroud. And there's hundreds of videos on the Shroud. But I really appreciated the comments that I got for my video. And I would think that YouTube would want to promote videos that have good communities. And I think you guys create good communities, particularly those of you who are in the TLC, or maybe even in the guys coming in from the Reformed podcast bracket. You know, that there's good community going on, and yet it seems like no matter what happens, no matter what sort of analytics I get on a video, as soon as my videos hit around 2,000, they just plateau, and it's just unfortunate. Because I feel like there are more people out there who would benefit from this conversation. And so there's a bit of a shameless plug. If you do know somebody and you want to share this on your social media or text it to a friend, and just generate more conversation, because I think the conclusion that we arrived at on this video was a good one, right? Is the true miracle of the Christian claim is that we have come into contact with the resurrected Christ. And that having come into contact with the resurrected Christ, we now live transformed lives. That's a good conversation. I like that conversation. So if you do too, if you feel like it's meaningful, and that's not just like a shameless plug, but like, I mean, I really do think that there are people out there that could use that conversation. And so, yeah, if you want to help out the channel and share that with a friend, thank you for doing that. Ooh, Scott with the comment. Okay, it's not about making money. It's about monitoring and control. That's actually, I think you're on the money there. YouTube makes plenty of cash already. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking that we were talking about the Relics as a money-making racket, and about monitoring control, maybe control of the narrative type of thing. And I do think there's something to that. I think there's something to, there is a group who has a concerted effort in maintaining the idea that humanity evolved from lesser life forms. I know I have like tons of, ooh, that's fun. That's huge. Are they all blown up? Did I blow all of them up? Well, whatever. That's fun. I'll send some links to videos that I've done in the past, but that is something I have tried to talk about, is there's a narrative control that people want, and yet the truth seems to emerge no matter what. But yeah, YouTube doesn't need my channel, essentially. Yeah, they don't need to share my channel. They don't need to share. But, again, I think in good faith, they want to find videos that match the audience. And I do think that there's some people out there that would benefit from this video. As a self-styled, God-seeking Christian, these conversations are so helpful to my faith. I've come from a worldview that is so skeptical and so dismissive of the truth that tangible pieces of confirmation are so reassuring. I pray that God grants me the gift of faith in His grace. Please continue these videos. They're so helpful. Thank you so much, Diviper Bro. That is well said. That is well. I mean, I feel that. I still am kind of a skeptic. I try to be the right kind of skeptic, but thank you for that. That is very encouraging. Tangible pieces of confirmation. These tangible pieces of confirmation are so reassuring. And here was my encouragement also in this podcast, is my hope is that the church, the body of Christ, can be that confirmation, that reassuring confirmation that there is a group of people who have come into contact with the resurrected Christ, and that in some mysterious and miraculous way, He is displayed even through the weakness and the failures of we who call ourselves followers of Him. It was a joke because of the view about dragons. I think, I did make the connection between dragon believer. Did you guys notice that? For you guys that follow the channel, a little while ago, I posted a video about Joe Rogan moving from being a dragon believer to being a believer in the resurrection. I thought that was really interesting. No miracle here. That's not Jesus. Yeah, again, and there's going to be some people that are just going to be skeptical. Of course, it's not Jesus. It's a shroud of Jesus. Yeah, be more concise. Don't enjoy the sound of your own voice. Just try to get the ideas across. I actually appreciate this Argentina tattoo. I really like the ideas that go around in my head. I don't always feel like I say them the right way. And so I do sometimes talk too much, but I actually don't like the sound of my own voice. As I drink more water because I feel like I'm getting raspy, but yeah, that is a struggle of mine. That's actually a struggle of mine. Sorry, you guys couldn't really see that. The resurrection always seems to be a barrier to him. Oh, to Joe, yeah, to probably a lot of thoughts going on through his mind while all the Christians he talked to over the last year. I wonder if there's at least some part of him that he wouldn't want to declare publicly. He's a Christian because his friends in the comedy club and comedy world would say, yeah, I think there's something to this, Rob. Yeah, Joe's not going to just come out and say, I'm a Christian. Now, he has come out and said Christianity is beautiful and Christians are beautiful. And that was something that we did. Again, I try to stay in the realm of studying podcasts and podcasters. And the Joe Rogan phenomenon is one that I tend to study. And one of the predictions that I made was 2 years ago, even when I started this, was when Adam Curry came on and said that he became a Christian because of the people around him. They weren't forcing Christianity on him, but they were just causing him to think more clearly about some of these things. And it was the people around Adam Curry that led Adam Curry to Christ. So again, the tangible witness of the resurrection of Jesus seen through those people who follow him, even in their weakness. And that being the case, I've always been curious as to who is around Joe Rogan. And I do know that he has some friends that are Christians. He has, and I can't think of who they are exactly, but I think he goes hunting with somebody who, I'm recalling a podcast between him and the guy with the beard. I could find it. I could probably find it. Remy Warren. Is it Remy Warren? That's not Remy Warren. It's one of those guys he goes hunting with. He is a believer. And I don't know about the guys around the comedy club. I mean, Duncan Trussell is an interesting one. He was raised Episcopalian, I think. Is not, not anymore, but certainly Duncan brings up the Bible a lot to Joe, which is really fascinating. So we'll see. And I think you're right. I think Joe wouldn't want to declare something publicly, and that's okay. He doesn't need to. Yeah, Cam Haynes, or the Meat Eater guy. The Meat Eater. That is, Meat Eater is. Oh, it's gonna bug me. I've watched, so the guy from Meat Eater, whose name I can't remember right now, which is such a bummer. I watched him when he was doing this show called The Wild Within, which was really good. It was really good. And then I think it was the History Channel or something like that. Just didn't want to play it. I don't know if Stephen Ranella. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. I knew somebody was going to be looking it up. Yeah, Stephen Ranella. I don't think he's a believer, but Joe also had a guy on who does the Bear Grease podcast, which is a fun podcast. Actually, Matt C, if you're still here, you probably like the Bear Grease podcast. Let me find, because Joe did have him on as well. Who does the Bear Grease? Clay Newcomb. Let me just do this. Clay Newcomb, JRE. 1674 is when he had Clay Newcomb on. Dude, except my my screen is all zoomed in, but it was, let me see, we'll get a little view of Clay. Yeah, there's Clay. I really enjoy Clay Newcomb, and I've listened to his podcast in the past. I've kind of stepped away for a little while, but yeah. So it's just a hunting podcast, and it's a lot of he features a lot of hunting in like the Southeast and the South more broadly, because I believe he's from Arkansas. And it's so funny because it's just old hunting stories and stuff like that. And of course, he goes up into Montana. He does Idaho stories and he does all kinds of stuff. But it's called Bear Grease. And Joe had him on a while back. And so Clay is also a part of the Meat Eater crew. And so this is the one here. I'll do JRE Clay Newcomb. There, in case you're. That's just the JRE podcast, but of course Clay's got his own podcast. So he so again, going back to the point, the question of Adam Curry had Christians around him that led him to Jesus. What kind of Christians are around Joe Rogan? And I know I just complained about YouTube, sort of small room shadow banning or whatever, but I actually do have a video that went kind of viral, so to speak. And it's the one with Alan Graham, Joe Rogan and Alan Graham. And Alan Graham's just a Christian. He's actually a Catholic, and their conversation was great. So Jesus didn't just perform a neat trick, but showed that he has the authority and the power even over death. Amen. He actually came back to life from a complete and total state of death. In so doing, he proves he has the authority to raise believers to everlasting life. Well said. Well said. Yeah, and that would be my hope. And I'm sorry I didn't do this. I'm sorry I didn't do it right. That would be my hope. I don't mind the shroud. I don't mind I want more conversation around the shroud. Why? Because I think it has the potential to lead people to a more meaningful conversation about the person of Jesus. Who is Jesus? Who's Jesus? And does he have the authority to raise me to everlasting life? And that's why I think when I listen to Dr. John Campbell, I hear in his voice a concern for the brokenness of humanity and where we are going to go for hope. Where do we go for hope? And I think some people may look at the shroud and it just, again, my only caution is, let's not stop at the shroud. Let's not stop there. Let's push forward. Yeah, we need a playlist of Joe Rogan hunting stories episodes. Let's do it. This year, every year I try to expand the reach of the podcast. Not the reach. What am I trying to say? What I'm doing with this podcast. And what I wanted to do last year is do more interviews. And I had reached out to quite a few people to do interviews. Actually, Matt C., you want to come on? You want to come on and talk? I'd love to talk. And I want to have Yosef on. Yosef asked about us having a conversation and whether we'd record it or post it or whatever. I think that would be great. And I wanted to do more interviews, and I've just haven't been able to schedule the interviews that I want to. I had a conversation with Grim Grizz last week, and I haven't posted it. Sorry, Grim. I got onto the Shroud thing, and I just haven't gone back to our conversation. I wanted to edit the background and make it a little more palatable. But it'll I'm sure I'll post it someday. But had a lovely conversation with Grim Grizz, and I've had conversations with other people on their channels, but I haven't done a lot of interviews for this channel. And so I still need to do that. But on top of that, I want to just do some clips. I might even experiment with just some narration videos where it's not talking head videos, though I'll continue to do those because I want to continue to push our ability to have conversation online. I really want to push that to its max if I can. So, all right, Matsy, I'll reach out and we'll try to schedule something. We can talk hunting. We can talk Jesus. We can talk Bible, whatever you want to talk about. John 19:36. There will not be a broken bone. If they believe his nose is broken. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Of course, the nose is cartilage. So that's an interesting point. Bill Adams. And again, that's so awesome. You have this distributed cognition going on. The nose is not bone, so there you go. Somebody else got there. Somebody else got there for me. Okay, so yeah, Mateus. Nose is not bone. He keepeth all his bones, not one of them is broken. Prophecy. This should be a miracle, but like I said, if his nose is broken, then it can't be Jesus. And of course, we don't know that his nose is actually broken in the shroud. Whoa. I thought that was the last comment. I'm way off. We don't know. It just appears to be broken. It appears to be broken. Why do you disbelieve? Just because what is that word? Suboriers? Posit controversy. They tested the medieval repair intentionally to botch it. Yeah, we didn't cover that a whole lot. But yeah, it does seem like some of the studies to disprove the shroud were not done in good faith. Add that Ray Rogers came to the Stirrup Project disbelieving, and after they sabotaged the carbon dating, he went to his death knowing this was the shroud. Wow, that's wild. That's wild. And of course, you're publishing findings, and you're publishing findings in the midst of a post-Enlightenment push towards secularism, where if you publish your findings and you're like, guys, this is a miracle, then you're not going to make a whole lot of money off of that. But if you publish findings that say, yeah, we disproved it, then you get to be the team that disproved the shroud, right? And showed those crazy religious people that their faith is in vain. I didn't talk about this too much, but yeah, the picture, the face, to me just doesn't look like I would picture Jesus. Yeah, the torture, the violence he endured. And of course, Jesus lived a life of suffering. He lived a life of suffering. And so, of course, he would have probably aged more, maybe. Yeah, Scott, I do post on Rumble as well. Continue those conversations. Yeah, and in fact, I have an Alex Jones video up on Rumble that I don't have on YouTube because it was clear after I posted it that YouTube was not happy with me. And so it's fine. It's your platform. I'll play by your rules. But yeah, it's still on Spotify. What am I saying? Yeah, Spotify and on Rumble. And, on Rumble, and I'm sorry about this, but Rumble, I don't understand Rumble. It's not as intuitive to
going
me.
along and the things.
But, and of course I'm logged out, so I won't be able to find it. But I have a user profile and I have a channel. They're both called Strange Theology. I think one's called Strange Theology Podcast. And I don't understand. It was like I created a user profile, and at the time I didn't understand how to create a channel. I thought I created a channel, but all I created was a user profile. Oops. So, sorry. I left you guys a little bit of a wild goose chase over there on Rumble. But yeah, it is on Rumble, and I will try to do better at posting some of this content over there. I know that I can just sync up Rumble and YouTube, which is so funny to me because Rumble's supposed to be like this YouTube competitor, but somehow they have back-end information coming from YouTube. Like, make it make sense, that type of thing. You do well with short. You would do well with short form monologues too, and I hear the algo prefers them. Clearly, I've been talking too long. I do try to clip my stuff down whenever I can. What's funny is I've gotten mixed. The videos that have taken off on my channel are the long form ones, the 45 to an hour minute ones. And the ones that are shorter, they seem to fizzle out faster. But that's maybe just because that's the audience that I've built. I don't think I'll be able to get through all these. There was a lot of comments, and I really do appreciate them. I did point out the darker blood around the wound was a little bit strange. Apparently, there's a podcast that Glenn Beck did regarding that. So again, check that out. Thanks for the info. Oh, I thought this was a scientific gospel. That's a really interesting way of phrasing that, because of course, um, the heavens declare the glory of God, right? God writes his message in the world, and we live in this world of common grace where we're bumping into the truth of God in unlikely places, hence Strange Theology as a podcast name. You don't think you'll find God on Joe Rogan, and yet there it is. There he is. Um, However, to me, it's bonus evidence. Yeah, and exactly, like we have and it's funny because, again, as a Protestant, there's like the sola scriptura, that whole thing. But even, is it Hebrews? Probably got it wrong, but it's like no, it's actually Peter. We have the more sure the word of prophecy made manifest to us in the person of Jesus. So the word of God is made more sure, right? So there's even a greater authority in a way. I don't know. Maybe I'm dancing along those lines there with sola scriptura, but it's like, again, even the word of God is meant to point me to the person of God, the person of Jesus, and having come into contact with Jesus, then it sort of, in a sense, confirms the authority and the authenticity of the word. And then since we have the word, it's like we can look at something like the shroud and go, man, if it lines up, then it's a bonus. Great. Bonus. Way to go. Shroud of lies. Yeah. And yeah, okay. So this was the Galatians thing. Galatians doesn't obviously point to the shroud, but your interpretation seems more tenuous to me. My interpretation was suggesting that it might. I guess if the shroud is genuine, it definitely would have been known and displayed to Christians from the start. And I don't know how Christians in Galatia would have been eyewitnesses to the resurrection, unless Paul is maybe talking about, again, we've sort of come into contact with the risen Christ. Before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. So he's talking about the crucified Jesus. It's just an interesting passage that I don't quite know what to do with. Sidorium. Okay, so that's that word I don't know. So forgive my ignorance. It looks like Thor. Yeah, it's like this is what I thought. It's like it just doesn't look like a Hebrew man to me. It looks like Thor. So maybe I'll deal with this some other time. Protestantism is a cult of man's interpretation of what it thinks. See, maybe I shouldn't touch on this because it takes me into I'm trying to decide whether I want to push on something or not with how some people on the internet, falsely portray Protestantism as being bad theology. But I've kind of washed my hands of that conversation. Or at least I'm trying to. Making an image out of the shroud would be in violation. Yep, that's the concern. You're missing the most important point about the shroud. It's a photo of the resurrection because the shroud shows the body that is moving. I thought that was interesting. People talk about the 3D imprint on the cloth, which is just like, even how they would have done that in like the 15th century or whatever it was. It does appear to be a phenomenon that we can't explain. Okay, this is what I think. Christians, be honest with yourself. It's not really about evidence. You'll believe anything regardless. Yes, of course. And skeptics will do as well, even when the evidence is right in front of your face. You live in the story that God wrote. Okay, so there we did. We actually covered quite a few of the comments. I'm glad I got a chance to do that. I haven't been able to do that recently on these on these live streams. And so I really appreciated did I? Yeah, I don't know. At least for now I did. I really did appreciate the comments on this. And again, just building community around meaningful topics has been a blessing for me. Again, I do this part-time. I do this as a hobby, and yet it is something that fills me with life. It's life-giving for me. And so I will show, I'll go ahead since I'm here, because I was griping about YouTube earlier, but some of the videos do break out, and that's encouraging. It shows me that we're on to something here with the podcast. So this one from Duncan and Joe a year ago has over 100,000 views. Thank you guys for that. Thank you for the support in that. This was the one with Alan Graham that I was talking about earlier. We're going to get an ad. Sweet. And again, Alan is he's just a guy. He's a missionary essentially. And I did a quick little video of it. 40 minutes. And, thanks to YouTube as a platform, there are 70,000 people that watched that video. And I think it's an incredibly encouraging video. And I'm grateful to have this platform and be able to make videos on YouTube. It is just interesting every once in a while when it's like 2,000, boom, and then it just plateaus. I'm like, gosh, we were talking earlier about some of the Christians that Joe has had on. Stephen Meyer was one of those before the Wes Huff interview. And again, it just shows that Joe is very curious. He had Dinah Walsh-Pasolka on, not necessarily to talk about Christianity, though she's a Catholic, I believe. They didn't go into that too much. It was mostly about UFOs and stuff, which was fun. But yeah, I have really enjoyed making these podcasts. And so it's great when I can see that other people enjoy these conversations. I love that this Michael Heiser one is one of the ones that is one of the top videos. So there you go. Shout out to Michael Heiser. There's a theory that Paul was involved in a stage performance. That was what I thought too. In Public Square, early Christmas tableau. What is that word? Very speculative though. Yeah. Were they dramatizing it? Was it the Jesus video? Early versions of that, which would have made sense, of course, in Rome with the plays and the things that would go on. Were they dramatizing it? I don't know. That is very. It's speculative, but it's sort of. That passage in Galatians leads you to think, how was Jesus displayed publicly? How was he portrayed? Because this word portrayed, what was I reading? I think I put it in the podcast, doesn't mean necessarily that an image was displayed. So if only they didn't have the algorithm at all, that would be the ultimate platform. Yeah. I wonder what that would happen. Wonder what would happen there. I wonder. So, well, I appreciate you all, and thank you for being here. I'm gonna, if you did here, I'll do a quick little plug. Maybe we'll do this. We'll go back to that video. We'll go back to this video. Quick little plug for my friend Scott Fegley, who allowed me to use one of his tracks. And if you watched all the way to the end, I put some Scott Fegley outro music up there for you guys. And so maybe I'll just play that for us as we conclude. Again, thank you for being here. And I will catch you all in the next one. There'll be no when I cross over.